gray KD2 IBP, talking about a 1987 Wellcraft 210 Classic project I'm starting this summer. This is the port side of the boat, and that bow light's getting removed and replaced. And we're going to roll around to the starboard side, where we're going to take care of some of that oxidation and get rid of some of that pinstripe, and we'll get a close-up on that. We'll get a close-up on the deck. It's going to get changed. The diamond girl's going to get rubbed out and replaced with something nicer. Same name. The cabin cushions are going to get replaced or cleaned up. I'm not sure what I'm doing with that yet. We'll work on that. The dashboard is all analog, and that's getting removed and replaced with digital, along with that switch bank on the right. And this is the doghouse that covers the engine. We're going to do a couple modifications to that. We'll get a close-up on that. This is a close-up on the deck. That weathered teak will get darkened up and waterproofed, and it'll look nice, I think. If you look at the starboard side of the hull, you'll see segmented pinstriping. That's all getting removed and buffed out. We'll see how that goes. That I made to bring this thing a little bit up to date. Kevin, starting with the pigtail on the trailer, put a 7-way on here, and that matches up with the Ram 2003. That runs perfectly. All the wiring matches up perfect. The brakes disengage when you put in reverse. I got rid of the identification lamp up front, the red and green light. Put LEDs in its place. Draws less current. Illuminates a little bit brighter. Looks a little bit better, I think. Looks a little bit sleeker. Also, disregard that fan. That's just AC powered fan temporarily under the hatch, so I could work in there without sweating to death. I don't have my fans hooked up yet on the inside, but that's yet to come. Going around starboard side, you'll see that pinstripe was removed, top and bottom, and I kind of buffed out the oxidation a little bit. I also installed a VHF antenna for the radio and polished up the rest of the hull a little bit going further down. The pinstripe up top was removed. The 210 Classic marker was removed, and the former bracket that was holding the old VHF antenna, that was removed. What else here? You'll see the Simrad antenna was installed on these struts, these galvanized struts. That's for the radar dome and 3G Wi-Fi connection. We'll get into that a little bit more once we climb aboard. Also, I ran a receptacle for power in the back, 120 volts AC, 15 amp. That runs power up to the front of the console on the right, and on the other side of that console is our power distribution rack. We'll get into that a little bit further when we climb aboard. Another change that was made is we darkened the wood on the back, and we coated it with Thompson's water seal. Cleaned it up a little bit, give it a darker look, and I think it looks a little bit better. You'll see I polished up the hull on the other side as well, on the port side, so that's not looking too shabby. There's still some oxidation. I can wheel it out a little bit better, but the cosmetic stuff we're going to worry about over the end of the season. I'm also going to get 2 new vents for the blower. You got one sucking air in and one blowing air out in the engine compartment to keep gasoline vapors from building up and exploding the boat when you start it, which is typically a bad thing. Alright, didn't really do anything with an engine. Did put a total scan transducer on the stern, and that will give you downward scan and side scan in both directions, so you could do rec scans and so forth and so on. We have to calibrate some of this equipment before we actually make good use of it. Also, I changed the position of the boat. I slid it up a little bit further. I have to change those racks a little. The weight distribution, the tongue weight was too light. Alright, getting on the hull of the boat. We added a switch bank down here. This controls everything. Electrical. This is the main power switch. turns on my indicators to let me know how much voltage is in the batteries. This is for my radio. This is for my SIMRAD and the other electronics on here. I replaced the blower switch. I wired up the lights so they work correctly. Down on the side, these are the running lights. This is the air horn. We have a two-stage horn. The first stage isn't working for some reason. I have to work on that. Something disconnected while I was messing with it. I think one of the leads got unplugged on the regular horn. But then we have the air horn. The SIMRAD. If you look at that, Insight Pro, that's another set of maps. We're just going to go to the 3 screens simultaneously to show you what exactly happens here. The SIMRAD lets you look at the map, the radar, which is in standby at the moment, and this is the sonar. Also with the SIMRAD, I can see what my instruments are doing. Fuel quantity indicator, temperature, trim position, how well the boat's running as far as economy is concerned. Is the trim in the right position for the speed that I'm going at, and the fuel consumption. It's all calculated to let me know where the best position for the trim is at the speed I'm going at, and I could adjust that. The alternator, this is really volts. That tells me the same thing that this indicator is telling me, but you know, for redundancy, whatever. Load percentage, I don't know what that's about. PSI, water. I haven't had to deal with that yet. I don't even know if there's a sensor in it. This communicates with a couple of the devices that I put on here, such as the fuel quantity indicator sensor, the sender, and there's also a fuel quantity meter. It's a flow meter that tells how much fuel is going into the engine from the tank. This thing bounces around a lot. I don't know how much I trust it yet. It might need a new sender. I got to open up this floor because this floor is all rotted anyway. Now once I open up the floor, I'm going to check out the condition of the tank, and I'm going to replace the sender because I don't like it. I'm not saying that the sender's a culprit. It could be just about anything with these NEMA 2000 setups. Could be interference from another wire. Who the fuck knows? All right. Put a new VHF radio, land to sea. This also grooves with the SIMRAD system. The SIMRAD will give it coordinates where you're at, so when you hit the distress button, it will send out a signal telling any potential listeners where I am coordinates wise. You can change from different maps. This, you know, this thing does 100,000 things. I don't even want to start getting into it yet because I don't really know it myself completely. But it's a great tool so far. It'll tell me a lot about depths of the water that I'm encountering, various obstructions, channels, so forth and so on. All right, there's the boat, and that will run along the path as we're going. All right, also a couple other modifications that were made here. You put a switch bank back here. This has my USB charges, regular 12-volt charger. Power that up from here. When I power that up, I also throw a light on through this porthole. You can see the engine. The engine compartment is accessible from here, just for a quick survey of what's going on. I can see my fuel bowl here. That is a water separator with an acrylic bowl on it, where it's translucent. I could actually see if there's contamination going into the secondary fuel separation filter, which is down a little bit further.
This way I don't have to open up the doghouse if there's a problem, if a belt snaps or something like that, if there's smoke, if there's fire. I'll know right away without having to take the doghouse off. So that's an interesting little feature I thought you might like. Alright, let's go down into the cabin. This switch lights up the cabin. And there it is, with the pimped out purple lights. Oh, I also installed a spotlight for nighttime navigation. I'll have navigation lights put out there, docking lights as they were, a little bit later. I had to put this plate over here, this wood plate, to keep that captain's chair in position, because the first day out it ripped off. What wound up happening was the floor's rotted beneath this fiberglass, and there's nothing to grab onto. And all those screws that I put in there, I'd say 20, only 2 or 3 actually grabbed. I have adhesive on the bottom that also helps it, but we'll see. It's secure enough to bring it out onto the water. It looks like tomorrow's the day I'm bringing it out for another test run. That would be test run number 2. Alright, let me unplug this fan for now, because it's a little on the noisy side. The lights that go around, they need to be continued. I have that inside. I haven't got that chance. I got to clean up the wiring over here, but I can control that from this radio control, this IR control, infrared. Change the colors, do all kinds of stupid shit. But we'll keep it on white now for demonstration reasons. These are ghetto mounted speakers just to get sound into the cabin. I have to put panels up on both sides. I'm probably going to box this out and take this off, and have some sort of different door. I don't know what I'm doing with that yet. I want access for the passenger to be able to put stuff in there. And I'm also going to put 12-volt fans, which I have, biscuit fans. They're going to go into the bulkhead, separating the cabin from the rest of the inside of the hull. The speakers will be mounted inside the panels once they're up. Once I figure out what I'm doing, that's yet to be determined. Let's start with the electric coming in. I put a electric DC distribution panel over here. The 12 volts coming in, positive, negative. All the main components here are fused out right at this panel, so if something blows, I have immediate access to the fuses, some extra fuses down there. The power that you saw at the stern coming in on that little pigtail, that powers up this 30 amp power supply, okay? That'll ramp up and ramp down accordingly depending on the current draw. Name escapes me. It's what type of power supply it is. I'm brain cramping right now, but let's move on. That 120 volts coming in also supplies this bar, the surge protector, and this way I can plug stuff in here, vacuums, etc. While I'm docked. And still have stuff, power for coffee makers or whatever I want in here, microwave, who the fuck knows. Alright, this is the back of the VHF radio, this is the back of the SIMRAD. The SIMRAD takes 2 micro SD cards with map software on there to up its capability. I have to unlock some features on there to get everything that it has to offer out of that. Another way to suck a couple bucks out of you. This is the gateway that transposes the information that's coming from the engine module, and that brings it to the NEMA 2000 backbone. So now my engine could talk to the SIMRAD, and all the other components talk to the SIMRAD through this NEMA 2000 backbone. This is a 1000 watt power inverter. This will give me 120 volts AC, 15 amps. I don't think it goes up to 20. I think it's 30 watts, 500 watts. I think it's like 15 amps. that could run coffee makers, etc. If I decided to use a regular house current out at sea off of the battery. And that's about it. Over here, this is the little air horn, very compact, very self-contained. If you have any questions, you call me and we'll talk about it, and I'll get in a little deeper with you. But that's so far what we're doing over here. So far, so good. And I think that wraps it up for now. This is a work in progress. This is nowhere near done to my satisfaction. I will constantly be building on this until it's something really cool. But we're working on it. Okay? Until then, Ray, KD2, IDP.